The topic for this unit is Assessment in Student Affairs. I'm really interested in how today's colleges and universities create a learning environment and learning experiences for students and how they assess their work to make sure their works very well for our students' success. This presentation will cover the 6 aspects. First, I'm going to introduce assessment in student affairs, and then I will talk about the peer-reviewed article. And next, I will relate the research on assessment in student affairs that outline the contributions, challenges, and critiques of this topic. Practical applications will be emphasized. In the end of the presentation, I will add my final thought. Introduction, Assessment in Student Affairs. According to the Banter and Blummer, the primary purpose of the assessment should be to understand how well our educational programs are working in terms of helping our students achieve their necessary learning. And then creating a learning environment and experiences for students has always been our student affairs work. The view of student affair assessment and the role of it have evolved throughout this field history. The earlier assessment activity focused on students' participation and satisfaction. Now these activities have developed into the efforts to assess what the students learn from their experience outside of the classroom and from the programs and the services provided by student affairs. Just like the Banter and Plummer note, it is essential that we assess support programs and services as it is to assess pedagogy and curricular effectiveness. The title of the peer-reviewed article is Looking Back and Ahead, What We Must Learn from 30 Years of Student Affairs Assessment by Elkins. This article briefly reviewed a history of assessment in student affairs and then examines the role assessment plays in the work today and make recommendations for the future of student affairs. What resonated most with me is the Elkins assertion that student affairs professionals have a lot to offer to assess student learning in student experience, but this potential is often ignored and undervalued. So I'm really curious about what contributions that student affairs professionals can make and what challenging facing them in terms of student learning assessment. Now, first, let's take a closer look at the evolving role of the contributions of student affairs to student learning. Elkins claims that as broadly defined student affairs work has existed on American college campuses since 1636 at Harvard College. The establishment and the evolution of the student affairs field are chronicled in a series of seminal documents. The analysis of these documents yield two broad conclusions. First, the role and contributions of the students of services, programs, and experiences developed by student affairs practitioners have moved from the periphery to the center of students' learning at college. Second, student affairs practice in assessing student experiences has moved from evaluating students' use of and participation in services and programs to measuring how programs and experiences contribute to students' learning. Therefore, student affairs can improve and implement student learning assessment initiatives both at the student affairs department and at the institution level. The student affairs role in the assessment of student learning, contributions, and challenges. The author outlined 10 aspects of contributions that student affairs can make in student learning assessment. Number 1, linking assessment to institutional mission and purpose. The alignment of student affairs mission with institutional mission and purpose has the potential to shape an assessment program that will provide an enriched learning environment for students. Number 2, understanding the broader environment. Student affairs professionals are among the most knowledgeable people on the campus for designing and implementing programs to enhance student learning and their success. Number 3, bridge accountability and continuum improvement. According to eval, there is a tension between two primary goals of assessment, that is accountability and continuous improvement. But student affairs professionals are frequently in a good position to help reduce this conflict and tension, and then their work can help inform a more detailed picture and interpret the information for improvement purposes. Number 4, developing and maintaining collaborative partnerships. The effective campus-wide student learning assessment activities require collaboration among various campus units. It is important for faculty and student affairs to work together in assessing students' learning so that students' learning experiences can be understood for both accountability and improvement purposes. Number 5, sharing expertise. Student affairs professionals are experts on student characteristics, interests, attitudes because they interact with different student bodies every day. But this expertise is often undervalued in campus-wide assessment. I think this is challenging, but it's also an opportunity because if a college and university recognize their expertise, they will make a difference in assessment work. Number 6, value and providing leadership. If strong working relationships have not been developed between student affairs leaders and other senior administrators on campus, it is difficult for staff to connect and collaborate with individuals in other areas of the campus. Number 7, devoting resources to assessment. Resources are limited on most college campuses. Student affairs department should be operated in a high-stakes environment. That means their evaluation must be considered as an investment in the future rather than just, for example, to meet the requirements of accreditation. If the assessment in student affairs for this purpose, it will be criticized by people for wasting of financial and people resources. Number 8, designing and completing activities for sustainable assessment. I think it is one of the biggest challenging, but it's also an opportunity. Instead of renewed accreditation, the assessment in student affairs should to be part of the annual administrative cycle, providing ongoing data collection for reports that outline assessment activities, the results, and the changes based on the results. If the assessment in student affairs cannot make a change that improves students' learning and their success, it doesn't make sense to make assessment. Number 9, implementing assessment plans. Assessment have been conducted, but the results and the changes based on the results are never orally communicated or distributed. That's the author's idea. In my understanding, that's challenging because if you have a story, but you should be a storyteller to communicate to your reader and engage them reading your story and make a difference in their work and their life. Same thing. Number 10, asking tougher questions. Student affairs professionals require more than just the programs, events, and experiences that they believe will help students learn. To be certain that these programs, activities contribute to student learning, they require empirical data. We need to learn how to use data to improve our work, and then through our work, through assessment, to better serve our students. In order to better understand the challenges and the critics of assessment student affairs, I relate the other research that talk about challenges. Number 1, demanding for greater accountability. Student affairs programs are not at the heart of the criticism in higher education, but they have faced the calls for greater accountability for their role in students' educational experiences. The criticism has focused on the costs of buildings and programs overseen by the department. Number 2, time and motivation. Most student affairs administrators and professionals lack the time to spend on assessment, lack the desire to do so, and lack the ability required to do research and understand how to apply assessment results once they have them. Number 3, assessment standards and constrained resources. Regional accrediting agencies' evaluation guidelines sometimes usually compelled student affairs organization to find a mechanism to undertake some type of assessment. In addition, many of the most popular instruments do not provide information that's clearly actionable within student affairs. Both of the elements lead to the challenges of assessment in student affairs. Based on the articles by Elkins, I list 5 practical applications about assessment in student affairs. Number 1, articulating the mission of student affairs. Number 2, leading in documenting how their services support academic specific and institution-wide assessment efforts. Number 3, launching campus initiatives that can both improve campus programs as well as positively impact the overall accountability measures of persistence and graduation. Number 4, interpreting local data to help the institution reach a better understanding of the student learning experience. Number 5, providing insights into student perceptions and experiences to the larger community. Through this presentation, there are 2 insights that resonate most with me. One is from the researcher Shu. He said, everyone who has some influence on the learning of students ought to be engaged in assessment. That means assessment should be conducted across the institutions, and assessment should focus on student credit experience and non-credit experience. In that sense, I think assessment in student affairs should focus on whether students graduate, whether they have get a good job, and what do they think about our institutions. Another insight from the speaker Ashley, who talks about the future assessment in higher education. He said, don't let the ending point be the gathering of the data itself. It reminds me to think of why we do assessment, just like Benter and Plumber say. The important question is not how assessment is defined, but whether assessment information is used. Through the assessment, we can get a more thoughtful idea about the ways how we can use the data to engage more people in the assessment process so that we can ultimately improve student learning, because higher education is about student learning. Thank you for listening to me. That's all.